BamaInsider.com, a Rivals network, and we appreciate him coming in. He is our recruiting analyst here on the Jay Barker Show with Antonio Langham and Kerry Adams as we continue here on this Tuesday edition. And wanted to get your thoughts before we dive into some of the latest news for the Crimson Tide and around the Southeast. But a guy getting a lot of attention from a number of universities. 40 offers has gone into Darnell Washington, who now stands at 6'8" and weighs 260 pounds, and 85-inch wingspan. On this kid, I told Antonio, does he stay at tight end, or has he become a left tackle or defensive end with that kind of athleticism?
I tell you, he's a special talent. I mean, you look at him, I mean, he's 6'8". I mean, 250 pounds. I mean, he is just an absolute monster and just a mismatched nightmare for anybody. He's being recruited by all the top schools in the country. He visited Alabama this spring, visited Auburn, visited some other schools, but Alabama is certainly a big factor with him right now. Very high on the coaching staff, and he's going to get back to Tuscaloosa probably this summer, and maybe again for an official visit. So I think Alabama will probably be a finalist all the way until the end. And some people actually,
especially with the depth there. I mean, they need a tight end.
It's a big priority position of need for Alabama this year. They do have one commitment, and this kid named Caden Clark out of Ohio, but they're really going after some elite tight ends in this class. And Darnell Washington is certainly one of them. Another kid, Eric Gilbert out of Georgia, Marietta, Georgia. It's kind of 1A, 1B with those two guys. Eric Gilbert is actually rated as the #1 athlete in the country, top 10 overall player in the country out of Marietta. A lot of people think he's going to end up at Georgia. His teammate, Harrison Bailey, big-time quarterback, is actually committed to Tennessee, so he's trying to recruit him, up to Knoxville with him. But I think he's probably going to end up at Georgia. But Darnell Washington certainly would be a huge addition for Alabama. Be a big win for Jeff Banks, the tight ends coach at Alabama, and obviously Coach Sark and Coach Saban.
Andrew Bone in studio with us, talking recruiting from BamaInsider.com. And from the standpoint of just, let's go away from Alabama and let's talk SEC kind of big picture. Who right now in the SEC is leading as far as, I guess, numbers, ratings, as far as recruiting class? And is there one out there that's been somewhat of a surprise of how well they've done?
Well, LSU's currently sitting at number 2 in the country, right behind Clemson.
Yeah.
Clemson obviously having a tremendous recruiting class, and then LSU just continuing to go out and get some elite players from all across the country, and not just the Southeast. And we the last few years we've really seen LSU just dominate the state of Louisiana. I mean, Alabama's been able to get some great kids from Louisiana, but at the end of the day, LSU's still going to get the majority of those guys. They've been able to recruit the Houston area, the state of Texas really well. But this year's been a little bit different. We've seen them go out and get 5-star linebacker Antoine Sampa out of Virginia. They've gone and gotten 5-star wide receiver Raheem Jarrett out of Washington, D.C. Elijah Ricks, 5-star cornerback out of California. I mean, they're in on a lot of other big-time guys this year as well, so they're doing a tremendous job.
What's the biggest difference for them? I mean, why are they doing better now than they were? Has there been added coaches to the coaching staff that are better recruiters?
They added a few new coaches to the staff this past year. It seems like a year, but the last couple months, and I think that's helped. But I don't know. I mean, these kids are getting out; they're going down there and seeing more kids visit, Baton Rouge than kind of ever before. In terms of top end guys from national guys from all across the country, not just the Louisiana, Texas kids, but they're doing extremely well. Georgia's obviously doing really well. Georgia, it's weird with Georgia this year because they only have, I think, 9 commitments, and a lot of other schools, are into the double digits. Other schools, 15, 16, 17 commitments. Alabama has 16 commitments. Georgia only has 9 commitments right now, but they have a top 5 recruiting class. It's going to be interesting.
That says a lot. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them in the end. I think there's a lot of excitement over there in Athens right now. A lot of people predicting a lot of big time kids to go their way this year, but still a long way to go. They just picked up a big offensive lineman out of Rome, Georgia this week, Tate Ratledge. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of big time kids that are out there. Probably about it seems like all the 5 stars have it down to already have it narrowed down to Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, LSU, Ohio State. And I just think that it'll be interesting to see what happens with those guys the next couple months, because it'll really determine what happens with these recruiting classes.
Alabama's got 16. Where'd you say they're ranked right now?
Currently ranked number 3. I think that can change just because I think a lot of you look at Alabama's recruiting class, they have a lot of 3-stars.
Mm-hmm.
If people ask me, and they said, "Well, why is Alabama recruiting all these 3-stars?" A lot of times it's these kids hadn't been upgraded yet. They hadn't been seen. Some of these kids that they've got commitments from, didn't emerge until late. They didn't get offers until late in the process, and they may not have gone to some camps. They may not have been seen. And now that they've kind of gone to some camps this spring, people are starting to see them a little bit more. So we're going to see some kids, a lot of kids that are 3-stars get bumped up to 4-stars. So it'll be probably in the next couple of weeks we'll see the updated rankings come out. We'll see probably Alabama, in my opinion, will move up to at least the top 2 in the country.
Yeah, just look at Josh Jacobs if you're worried about 3-stars coming out. I think he even had a star, right?
Eddie Jackson.
That's right, yeah.
Marcel Darius. Marcel was a little bit different because everybody knew how good he was, but a lot of people didn't think he was going to qualify academically. So that's why his ranking was a little bit lower during his senior year. But there are a lot of kids out there, as you mentioned, like Josh Jacobs. I mean, Josh Jacobs didn't have any scholarship offers. I mean, he started picking up some late some ones late in the game, but Eddie Jackson, didn't play as a junior, played as a senior in high school, so that made him get on the map a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times stuff like that happens.
Okay, let's talk Andrew Bone again. Joining us, BamaInsider.com, and this is a network of rivals. Clemson at that number 1 spot. Number 1 will be the best class they've ever had in school history, right? I mean, if they continue on. Have they not normally, with all the composite rankings, been anywhere between like 11 and 15? It seems like over the last so many years, but yet still are competing for national championships. How much better will they be once they land what could be the top class in the country, one of the top all time?
Well, I mean, they can certainly, they're going to certainly continue to be competing at a high level, and certainly going to be in the playoff talk every single year, and preseason, top 5, because they, what they're continuing to do, they're continuing to recruit, obviously, great players on both sides of the ball, but they're continuing to recruit elite quarterbacks every single year. And they got the number 1 quarterback in the country this year, and DJ Ukulele. Obviously they have Trevor Lawrence there now, but they just recruit now at such a high level, and they're able to capitalize off the most recent national championships. And Dabo and his staff have just done a tremendous job. It's amazing to just kind of see how their coaching staff is just remains intact year in and year out. I mean, those guys are always there. They've got great relationships with players. Those coaches are developing relationships with kids that are sophomores, juniors in high school, and they're still there when those kids get on campus, and they're still there. 3-4 years that those guys are still on campus, and a lot of other programs. Alabama, for instance, we're seeing those coaches get poached almost every single year, whether it's a position coach getting a coordinator position, or a coordinator getting a head coaching position. We see those guys leave every the last 3 years. We've seen it, I feel like, more than ever before. Just complete change. But the one constant is always Nick Saban.
Yeah,
that's what recruits. They love Nick Saban. I think that helps. That's what helps Alabama out a lot.
Where's Notre Dame sitting right now? Because to me, Notre Dame, with that kind of the name brand, what it's the tradition of it, and I maybe ask you a question. You're going through the Rolodex there in your mind, trying to figure it out. But let me ask you this: not in as far as their rank, but why can Brian Kelly not have the top 5, or should he be having a top 5 class at Notre Dame year in and year out? Just based on the brand and the support that they get, not just nationwide, they get world support from so many people that watch them all around the world each and every Saturday. That's why they got NBC, right?
I mean, they do recruit well. They've been recruited well. I think academics are certain. I think that probably has a little bit of a factor in it. It's kind of the same way with Stanford. There's a lot of kids that want to go to Stanford, and they can't get them in. I think that happens a little bit up at Notre Dame as well, but for the most part, I think Notre Dame recruits at a very high level year in and year out. I mean, they always have a top 10 recruiting class. It may not be the number 1 recruiting class. It seems like the number 1 recruiting class is usually In the SEC, or Clemson, obviously doing extremely well, but I don't know. I mean, it's a weird thing with Notre Dame, because you would think that they would be be able to attract kids from all the top end kids, all the 5 stars coming up there, but it's going to be hard to compete, especially against programs like Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State. I mean, even Michigan, Penn State recruits extremely well. The Florida schools are tough to recruit against. Notre Dame, they recruit all over the country, but one of the areas that they recruit extremely well in and always target is California, Southern California, and it's hard to recruit in that area as well.
When you look at and asked you about as far as one of the teams doing well, you said LSU in the recruiting. Is there one out there in the SEC that maybe isn't living up to the billing or what they should be doing from a recruiting standpoint that's falling behind a little bit? Not Vandy, no.
No, not Vandy. All the schools are pretty much doing pretty well this year. I mean, you look just kind of top to bottom. I mean, it's been a really good year so far. Tennessee had had such a good recruiting class last year, and I think that they're I think a lot of people are probably watching and waiting to see what happens with them this year. Now, obviously, they've got some good commitments. Harrison Bailey, as I mentioned before, jumped on board, but they've actually had a few kids decommit in their class this year. So I think it's going to be a big year for Jeremy Pruitt up there to see what he can do in year number 2 and see if he can continue to recruit well up there.
Yeah, it's amazing because Tennessee was kind of the team in the SEC before everybody else. It was more of a national recruiter because they had to be, because high school football, it was not as strong. It's getting stronger in those areas up in Nashville.
And they were getting everybody.
Everybody,
I mean, back in those former years, it seemed like every top recruit had Tennessee, from California to Washington D.C. and South Florida, and just all over. I mean, Tennessee was always a finalist for those top tier guys.
Now I'm gonna ask you this: we had a little discussion, I think it was yesterday, and I said Florida was going to be my team that surprises everybody in the SEC this year. Where are they ranked as far as recruiting is concerned right now?
I hadn't even looked at Florida's ranking. I can't even tell you.
Can I believe we stumped you today, man?
No, I can't believe this today.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a guy with no notes.
Yeah,
no.
I don't know. I mean, Florida is I've started to see kind of a different trend with them over the course of the last 3 or 4 months. I say 3 or 4 months over the last year probably. With Dan Mullen, it seems there's a lot more excitement down there. They're starting to get kids to come there a little bit more. We saw Florida State was just getting everybody for a real long time, and because a lot of people just weren't sure the direction that McElwain and those guys were going in down there at Florida, and so schools like Miami and Florida State and even Alabama, and Alabama was able to go in and get some really good players out of the Sunshine State over the last 10 years. Really since Nick Saban's been there, but I think Florida's really starting to put the clamps down, and they're able to get some really good guys. They're able to get some good guys in the state of Alabama as well. They've been able to go outside the state and get some good players, but what they're able to do right now is they're able to kind of hit some big time guys in the state of Florida, and Dan Mullen, he closed extremely strong last year in the state of Florida, getting some good guys, and I think they're going to be I would be very shocked if they're not definitely in the top 2 in the East. And I mean, obviously you think of the East and it's Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee, but I think everybody thinking that Georgia's just going to run away with it every year. I think they're wrong, because I think Florida's going to be right there with them.
When it comes to the transfer portal, we were talking about it earlier, and how the coaching staff said, look, we check it in the morning, we check it at lunch, we check it afternoon, and we check it before we leave at night. Did it's become that big for them? But they said it's taking up, as far as recruiting for them, about 40% of their time, looking into the portal, trying to find out things, and also getting ahead of it, creating what they call hot lists, kids that they've recruited that they know are either from the state or showed an interest in the school. Put them on the hot list. If that name pops up, we need to get to them first, because they know that we know them and they know us. How has this changed the way you guys do stuff? Whether it's Bama Insider, Rivals, Network, do you guys look at that? Will you start placing any type of stars or things on the portal? Do you get a chance to see the portal as far as the players that are there? They're looking to transfer.
Yeah, I mean, there's a way for us to pull it up, but it's something that changes. It seems like every single day. Not every one of those guys that enters the portal, as we have seen, leaves the program. We see some of those guys that.
Is there a period of time they can stay in, or they have to get back out, or is? I haven't seen anything about that.
I think we'll probably see some restrictions, some rules probably in place over the course of the next year or two. I don't think there's anything in place right now, but I mean, it has changed things a little bit. I mean, coaches are looking at it every single day, trying to figure out, all right, who's coming out. I'm sure probably people that may be connected to the player, may be reaching out to programs saying, hey, this kid's leaving the program. Or, would y'all have any interest? We might have interest, but we got to wait until they get in the portal and they get released from their scholarship. So, we saw last week with Alabama, Tavian Feaster, who's a former running back for Clemson, had over 1,000 yards rushing for Clemson the last 2 seasons. Decided, he wants to transfer. He's going to graduate and transfer. And even though Alabama doesn't seem like a program that's looking for a running back, they've been looking around for other positions. They've been looking around for tight end. They've been looking around for linebacker, safety. There just hadn't been any guys out there that they like. When a program like Alabama or whoever it may be is looking in that transfer portal, especially for a grad transfer, they're looking for a guy who can come in and compete and who can help and who can contribute. They're not looking for a guy to come in there and just sit the bench, just to have a guy on the roster and fill up a roster, spot. They're trying to find a guy who can come in and help the team. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult than it may seem.
All right, Andrew Bone, great stuff as always. Again, for BamaInsider.com and Rivals Network, also a real estate broker right here in Birmingham, Alabama. You only live about a block from here. It makes it good for you to come by the studio. We appreciate you coming in as always and updating us on all things Alabama and around the SEC and around the country as well. You always do a terrific job. That's Andrew Bone again from Bama Insider.